If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave? If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave?
I see an old lady holding the door as I tumble out my wheelchair and roll to the floor. First thing in the morning in the grocery store. Not sure if this alcoholic's body can hold me no more. I hustled up enough change for the whiskey in my hand. Tried to tell all the people but they didn't understand. Too many years spent sleeping in the gutters, on my hands and on my knees, eating from the rubbish. Roam the streets with very little keeping me sane. Too many twisted visions left engraved deep in my brain. Nightmares are right there and I don't think good thoughts. Happy memories became hateful days when I could walk. Make me hate those that have a life and can stand. Do you people know what I sacrificed for this land? My aching heart can't feel the bladed glass in my feet. Don't take a glance cause I'm just a face you pass in the street.
If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave? If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave?
Evicted from my home, couldn't scrape up the right rent. No heat in there, all I had was the lights left. Spent months eating, sleeping, shitting in my mess. Thinking back to when my wife left, I was quite stressed. Guess all my addictions had got the best of me. Sometimes I wish to change my fate, or was it destiny? Look up to the sky on rough nights, wondering why I saw our baby girl pass in front of my eyes. Before it, the thought of it tortured me. Only lived 6 days, was born with deformities. Still the birth really filled me with joy, even though I kinda hoped it would still be a boy. I was dealing with demons I'd carry with me daily. Wanted to carry on my name when I had a little baby. Thinking in deep ways till my soul is torn of the bittersweet day I came home from war.
If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave? If you could go back, what would you change? What would you do again? Never would remain the same. What would you give? And what would you keep? What would you take and what would you leave?
I rolled out the hospital on honourable discharge. I looked down, saw my body with horrible big scars. Brave face, but it was bad at night, I would break down. I woke up and I was paralysed from the waist down. Was in a coma for a few weeks. Before I closed my eyes, I was just another soldier with 2 feet. On all type of drugs that send me higher. Shot by my comrade, official name, friendly fire. Everyone was screaming, but I only heard her. And everyone was crying, but I only heard her. As I looked down at what I had done, I had a split second to contemplate what I had become. Like it or not, trained to kill like it was a job. And wild or not, she was just a child with a rock. Threat in my eye and the power in my left hand. I swear my finger slipped and then the trigger went bang.